Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. Now, this is an exciting day for me because I fell in love with this new show over the last couple of months that I've been talking about, but I want you to go check it out because we focus on reality television shows a lot around here, obviously, but I also find it fascinating the behind the scenes stories of how these things are made. And there's such a rich history with reality television now because it's been around for decades. Well, Vice TV has a new show called Dark Side of Reality TV that I urge you to check out. It airs Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm going to go over exactly how to find it, check local listings. You can download the Vice TV app, but the Dark Side of Reality TV has covered so many great shows thus far. You had the Swan, if you remember that show, we'll talk about it. Kid Nation, which I was a huge fan of, this one season wonder on CBS, but we are headed into the final couple episodes of the season, and one of those being the Real Housewives episode, which I was able to watch and I was blown away. And we have the pleasure of having the executive producer of one of the executive producers of the Dark Side of Reality TV, Meghan Payne. Thank you so much for joining us, Meghan.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your podcast, and also congrats on 5 years. It's so exciting.
It's crazy. Well, I mean, it's really, it started off as like not even, it's something I did in my room, and to see that it's now my entire life of just these shows that I love so much. And what I love about watching your show is it reminds me of why I fell in love with reality television in the first place. And I was wondering, like, how did you even come up, or how did you guys come up with the concept and actually even choose the shows that you wanted to focus on? Because I forgot about Kid Nation like that. I think a lot of people don't even remember that show. So I was so happy that you guys committed this to TV.
Yeah, so we have a Dark Side series franchise that we did Dark Side of the 90s, Dark Side of the 2000s. And I love reality TV, and my team knows how much I love reality TV. And so in a brainstorm, I said, why not reality TV? Everyone wants to know what's behind the scenes, what goes on. We want those dirty details. And with reality TV in the early 2000s, we didn't get those dirty details on social media during the filming. Cameras didn't pick up. Like, we didn't know what was happening until it actually aired. And so I wanted to go back to what I call is like the golden age of reality TV. Those first seasons of Survivor, Real Housewives, The Swan, and like the crazy experiments like Kid Nation, and go back into those. And so that's really kind of how we were able to deliberate all of the different episodes, because every single meeting we had on this, it was like Love Island, Love is Blind, and like there's just so many great series, but we really want to stay true to like, this is the golden age of reality TV and what everyone is kind of emulating now.
Isn't it wild to think that there actually is a golden age of reality TV now? Like that, I love that we actually have a history for these things that we love, and to watch how it's like kind of mutated, and it's like kind of on steroids at this point in terms of how much there is. Totally. But it was a simpler time, but at the same time, it was in some ways a crazier time, because one of your first episodes, The Swan, which, by the way, you guys, I forgot, Terry Dubrow from Real Housewives of Orange County is a talking head in this, but he was one of the initial surgeons on The Swan. And can you explain to people that don't remember what The Swan was, what The Swan's concept is?
The Swan was wild, and getting Terry to talk on it was so amazing. And it's during the time that Real Housewives of Orange County is airing. So you see Terry on there, and then you also see Terry on our show, which is great. The Swan was a makeover show originally, and then they also added on a competition aspect. So you would go in, you would get which, you have to add the competition aspect onto it. It's not enough to go through like 20 hours of surgery. But so women were chosen, and they would come and they would stay in a hotel room, and they had to block out anything that was a reflective surface. So mirrors, like a compact mirror, your phone, if it was like too shiny, everything was covered. And so then you would go through a whole process where they would figure out like, okay, what do we want to do? This is how we're going to change it. They put them in these, like, they call them the granny panty cam, where they would put them in granny panties and then do like a full 360, of course, for the viewer to see of what needed to be changed. And the contestants were talking about, like, they made me look so much worse than I thought I looked, that I was like, yes, I need everything. Like, give me it all. And so then after all the surgeries were done, they would then have to go to the gym and work out in bandages. And one of the coaches that was there, he was talking.
Yeah, you have the trainer. You have one of the trainers as a talking head on this. Which I was like, that's wild. They're working out with bandages on their face.
Which, like, we're all sitting at home like, yeah, like, that's pretty crazy. But when you really think about just like the internal bleeding that's going on when you're working out. Like, I can't work out normally. And now working out with a nose job and like oh my God, it's like, it's insane to think about what these women went through. And then on top of that, at the end, they were then paired up against another woman to go on to the final competition, which was like very pageant like. And so not only did you just change your entire look, you're now judged on whether it was good enough to go into this competition. So it's like, it's so layered. And then at the end of the competition, you're crowned the Swan. And what I really loved, our showrunner, Alex McIntosh, he went like full camp with our recreate, which we loved. And at the end, you have all of the women with, you know, their sashes and the crown and all the bandages though. And you see them taking off all the bandages, which I just loved because it was just kind of this like beautiful, like, I'm taking this away. Like, I am beautiful. I don't need all of this stuff. But it's a wild episode and wild show that we were able to get on there.
Yeah. I mean, that quest for beauty. And even in the show, they talk about like, they were improving all of these physical features, but like mentally and inside these other things, you know, they didn't spend as much time as they wanted to. Like, they were pushing like, hey, let's do more. And they were kind of discouraging like, oh, you only want to do the nose job? Like, let's go further.
Yeah. How dare you only want the nose job? And the crazy thing is they had their executive producer come in as a life coach halfway through the season. The life coach that they had, that they kind of promised these contestants they would have, left. And so then they had an executive producer. And as an executive producer, I can't imagine kind of breaking that fourth wall and becoming a life coach, because it's obviously, you want drama on your own show. And so now you're in this like therapist coach light talking to someone that you're also executive producing. It's very meta. There's a lot of
layers. I mean, and you think about, you know, today with like the reality reckoning and the Bethany Frankel of it all, and just like, man, she would have had a field day back in the day. Like, I mean, because there are so many, and like, you're an executive producer, like there's a code of ethics and morals that you work by. So it is really interesting to see when there were less rules than there were now, how much stuff they were able to get away with, and then how popular the Swan initially was. But at the same time, all these opinion pieces were being written of what is going on. This is a horror show.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that now you have the beauty of X and Instagram and Reddit and everyone kind of getting their opinions out there as things are happening. And you didn't have that back then. And so it wasn't until the entire show aired and all the critics panned it that people realized like, oh, wow, this is not good. And Terry even says it himself. He's like, I was so afraid I was going to be on the cover of a magazine being like, they did what? And so it's, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that it's like so different, is you can't do something like that now because you have all of America being like, excuse me, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I find it probably is so hard to create in this day and age because there are so many, not limits, but there are a lot of things that we've learned over the years and a lot of things that we've grown as a television audience. So it is interesting when it was the Wild West and somebody like Terry, when he popped up, I was just laughing when I was like, wow, he has such a rich history in reality television. When you guys are starting a process like this, I mean, I don't know how it works with the other producers. I mean, are you in a room going like throwing out shows? Like you said, Love Island, all that stuff. Was there a show that like you fought for that didn't make it? Were there like, how did you settle upon these shows?
Yeah, it was a tough process because it's like killing your babies. You're like, I love all these shows. And like just myself, I want to know the background on all these shows. I want to research all of them. And so when we went through, I would say Vanderpump Rules was the one that I fought for and I really wanted. But we decided that we really needed to do Real Housewives like in the first season and then go to Vanderpump, because obviously Real Housewives with Lisa Vanderpump, like, you need to kind of see that beginning part of it and then go into Vanderpump Rules. So that was one I fought for, but
So Meghan, are you telling us we already got a second season?
The episode may or may not be written already.
Come on, let me be a talking head just on the Vanderpump Rules one. I'll do it outside of the
your number.
Come on. Like, no, I mean, this is so exciting because I was fantasizing watching these episodes, what the creative process must be like. And that's why I really wanted you on the show, because I just thought how fun of then deciding on the shows and then deciding who do we reach out to? Who's the talking heads that we go out to? Because Terry to me is such a get because of his stature and like, you know, what he's done on other reality shows. And to remind people, this is kind of where he started in television. How do you start breaking down once you have the episodes, who we're going to reach out to, what the angle is, like, how are we researching all of this?
Totally. And like, again, it's like something that it's like, if if you're reality TV obsessed, you know exactly who to go for. You know, we put together kind of our top people, Vicky being one of them, Terry being one of them. And the fact that both of them said yes was like monumentous to all of us, because that was something big. And so we started this before the reality TV reckoning happened. And this is also before there was all shifts with cast members and all of that. And so we kind of started like, this person's never going to say yes because they're still on the show. And then when reality TV reckoning happened, a lot more people started leaving the show, and we were like, oh, wait a second, we can get them. So it was like one of those things where it was kind of serendipitous the way that this all happened. And I hate to say that, like, you know, some misfortune was our fortune. But I think a lot of people wanted to tell their story and didn't know how. And this show, I think, just kind of lent itself to someone telling their story, Vicky being one of them, which was like amazing. I mean, she was so real and raw. And
guys, they had the OG of the OC in the Real Housewives episode. And I got to tell you, there's a couple of moments in the talking heads of revelations that I was like, the fact that you got her in this talking head talking about that scene where her mom passes away and she found out on camera. And it was such a powerful scene. I remember seeing it the first time, but her talking about it in retrospect, I was blown away by her talking head in your show.
Oh, I watched it in real time as well. The episode that it happened on, I didn't realize like everything that went on behind the scenes of her daughter trying to get a hold of her and her family trying to get a hold of her, and production kind of holding it off and being like, wait a second, we got to set this up. And again, from a production standpoint, I get it. Like, you want to set up that perfect shot. You want everything to happen. But I think when it comes to someone's mother passing away, like, that's a really big thing to have on camera. And you can see just like how visceral her reaction is when she gets on the phone and everyone kind of comes in the room to console her. But knowing that, you know, her family was trying to get a hold of her as she's playing bridge in Shannon Medore's living room, you know what I mean? And like that whole setup is just, it's like a wild, you know, seeing both sides of it.
Well, that's what I talk about nowadays. It's not just the show, it's the show behind the show. That's why I think your show is so successful and it does this so well, because we only can imagine what goes on behind the scenes. Like, we're so now addicted, like you said, Reddit, Instagram, we're all Facebook detectives. Everybody's like poking around trying to find the real story. And there actually is one. The insanity sometimes behind the scenes is even more intense than what we see on the screen.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's the other thing that, like with Kid Nation or Survivor, I learned so many new things. And Survivor, Kelly Wigglesworth talks about a cameraman that literally fell off a cliff while he was filming her. And like, just to understand kind of the backside of that, of like the 39 days are real. Like, the food is real. Like, there's no food out there. You have all of these like snakes and thorns and all of these things that you have to live in. And I don't think people actually realize like what that entails. And then when it comes to it, like, the producers also are going through that, which you don't realize as well. And them talking about kind of living kind of the Survivor life alongside of them is just wild to me. And that was like, I think the coolest part about the show.
And what's so great too about the Survivor is that was the first time they did it. You're focused on the first season. So you have Richard Hatch, Kelly Wigglesworth, and those people. Like, I remember Survivor. I remember how that hit. And then it became appointment television before DVRs. And they didn't really, Mark Burnett was selling this idea that they didn't fully know what they were going to capture. They didn't know the magic that it was going to actually turn into. And, you know, the Mark Burnett of it all is so fascinating, how he'd really pushed this. There was so much product placement, but they really were. They were starving by the end. They were turning on each other. Richard Hatch literally is reality television's first villain.
Oh, I mean, it was amazing. I watched that first episode, and it's also just like the audience involvement in it and just how visceral they felt towards these people that they've never met. And the thing with Survivor is that you're just kind of stripped of everything. And so what I love is, and I still think Survivor is true to this, is it's one of the best reality shows in that sense, is that like, you don't have everything else around you. You don't have your creature comforts. And so you're kind of forced to forget the cameras are there and just act like a real person, which I think is like, as a reality TV fan, that's all you want. And that's what I love about Survivor. And you really kind of saw that from Kelly. Like, they still hate each other. Kelly still hates Richard Hatch. And listening to her talk about like the fact that like she's happy she didn't win and it was a good thing because like I could have ended up in prison and he's where he should have been is wild to me.
But, you know, I mean, like you said, though, that's kind of what we want to see something real. And like, you want to believe that there is skin in the game for these people, that they really feel this. But like the fact that Kelly still hates Richard, of course, because this was her real life. And Richard, this was like this social experiment for Richard. Of like, even when he auditioned for Survivor, he went in saying, I'm going to win this show. I'm going to be you're going to hate me and I'm going to win this show. Like, he went in that cocky.
Oh yeah. And he also went in with a plan. His plan was to be naked. And he he did that every day. And it's like genius when you think about it, because it just gets everyone kind of like up on Annie. And he is kind of like able to run amok around the camp and get people on his side, because everyone's just like so confused as to what's happening. But it's so funny too, when you'll see other Survivor contestants like do the naked thing and they're like, oh, we know what you're doing. Like, it's not going to work.
Well, that's it. I mean, we have so much reality television now, and it's all been inspired or people copy from past seasons. So this show kind of highlights, like I said, this simpler time when gameplay was new, when Housewives were new. And now you see a lot of Housewives that are like kind of inspired by 18 seasons of a reality TV show. So you don't know if you're necessarily getting something real or just something that they've watched and they've grown up on. So they think this is what the audience wants to see. And Survivor is a perfect example too. Like, the gameplay sometimes is so insane on Survivor because everybody has watched every season. And I sometimes long for the days of when it was all new. And like, did you walk away from this whole process of the first season? Like, what did you walk away in terms of like, I learned this as a reality TV show fan, I didn't really realize until I did this series. Did you come away with any revelations?
Yeah, I think it's really just like the contestants and the reality TV stars at home that we watched kind of blossom into these stars and where they came from. I didn't really realize how much these contestants went through. Contestants or, people like Vicki Gunvalson from The Real Housewives, like, they really let cameras into their home, and they didn't really know what that was going to be. Now contestants and reality TV stars, they know what's going to happen. They understand, and they're kind of playing 10 places ahead, whereas these contestants, like, they didn't really know what they were getting into. And I don't think you really understand that until you're talking to Kelly Wigglesworth or Richard Hatch of like, hey, I knew I was going to an island and I knew it was going to be like weird, but like, I didn't know I was going to have to deal with a snake potentially killing me. And you know what I mean? And I think that's something that we forget because we're watching them on our TV and we're just like, oh, it's probably not that bad. Like, they're just playing it up for cameras. And it's like, no, it is actually real. And I think on the other side of it, it's like, to like the Real Housewives, it's like your entire life is filmed. And so I can't imagine what it's like when those cameras go down, like what you're left with. And I think that's like the hard part, is that when the cameras aren't there anymore and, you're with your family and all of that, it's like, well, who am I still? And I think that's like the raw part of talking to these contestants, and you can really like understand from their point of view of just like reality TV did a number on them and kind of like the consequences, if you will.
Well, I mean, because nobody expects to have their lives on film, and then nobody expects to have all of us talking about it, to have all these eyes and opinions. And I was going to ask, in terms of social media, which, like now has exploded, how do you think social media has affected reality television and these shows? Because, as a producer yourself, I mean, it just, you want social media to be on your side or to talk about your show, but you don't want it becoming your show.
Totally. I think Love is Blind is a great example of social media kind of like cannibalizing the show, because you're finding out if like someone actually got married before the ending. And you're seeing, I think a great example is Taylor and Garrett, like her saying, someone cooked here with like his like new hair. And you're like, well, obviously they got married. Like she wouldn't be making that joke if they didn't. And for me as like a producer, I'm like screaming like, no, you got to save that to the last minute.
How do you keep the lid on the pot? Because these people go out in their lives and it's not, it's unnatural if they just stopped using their phones and stuff, but you kind of want this environment where it's completely contained, because so many leaks get out, and production time from when it shoots to when it airs is such a long period of time. Like, I don't know in terms of future of reality of like, how do you keep this fresh and keep it secretive and keep it real? All of those things with social media, it kind of cuts it off at the knees.
Totally. And I mean, it's probably a generic answer, but I think it's working with like the marketing team and the reality TV stars of like, hey, we both want the same thing at the end of the day. We want eyeballs. I want to give you content for your podcast. I want to give you content for your social media. But it's finding ways that you can kind of tease little things. And she and I would say from Vanderpump Rules does a really great job at kind of like getting in the comments and being like, you just have to watch it. Like, I promise, and I think that's the right way to do it, is to kind of still tease it. But it's so hard right now because you end up seeing kind of like what the friend groups have shifted as on social media. And you're like, wait a second, they're hanging out now. And they were not hanging out a couple months ago.
Oh, totally. Yeah. You pay attention to all these context clues.
Yep.
And we didn't used to have those context clues. One of my favorite facts is that the night OC premiered was the first day Twitter was live. That was the first day. But back then it was just like, hey, I just made some popcorn. Those were tweets. It wasn't like, I'm going to destroy your life, Vicky Gunvalson. Like,
that is all a lie.
It's so different. And it was like, wow, like social media has really done a number on reality TV. I was going to ask too is, why do you think these people do it? I mean, like, even back then, we know now there's like social media power and influence and potential deals, but like the downside is such, to me, a big downside. Like, would you ever do reality television yourself?
I always say, I think I would be really good in reality TV, but
oh no.
But then it's one of those things where I'm like, if I'm actually in that, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't say this. I can't say this. I can't say, like, yeah. I feel like it's one of those things that everyone says I can do it. And then when they're actually in it, you're like, absolutely not. And that's how I feel. It's like one of those things that you're like, oh, I can totally do it. And then you're like, no. But I feel like people do it because it looks like a fun new experience. And also I think it's just like, Vicky says it's a lot. She's like, I have so many home videos now over the years. And I think that's like, and I know that's like such an earnest way of looking at it, but I think it is interesting having like a doc made about your life and like seeing yourself in another light. And I think a lot of marriages have broken up, but a lot of them actually have been like gotten better because of it. They were able to like see themselves and their family.
Wait, which ones have gotten better? Which ones have gotten better?
You know what? As the second I said that, I was like, wait a second.
I was like, wow, okay, maybe I missed that show.
Actually, I'll say Terry and Heather. I will say right. Terry and Heather, I feel like I've heard them over the years say they've worked out a lot of different things because of the show. And I think, not that I think everyone goes on the show to kind of better themselves, but I do feel like that's a part of it. It's like, let me see how I am to other people. But I mean, it's a fame thing. Like, that's exciting to have a camera crew following you.
I mean, I think that's it too, is that kind of unnatural, not quest for fame, but that we all want something more. We all want to be beautiful. We all, even those ladies going on the Swan. Now, I did want to bring up, just if you guys didn't know what I was talking about, they have a whole episode on Kid Nation. Now, Kid Nation was a one-season show on CBS where they literally let kids run a small town without any parental supervision. And I mean that. Like, they have to cook for themselves, clean for themselves, and it's like Lord of the Flies. And I was so excited. And you guys, you got talking heads with these kids that are all now grown up. Did you watch Kid Nation when it first came on? Or you might be too young.
Yeah, I did not see Kid Nation when it was on. But
you might have been on Kid Nation. Who knows?
I was like, was I on Kid Nation? Who knows? Can you imagine? But our president of our network, Pete Gaffney, he sent me this video and he's like, have you seen this? And Funny or Die had done a whole like YouTube clip on it. And I was like, oh my God. And then the bleach incident happened, and DK.
Can you explain? Can you explain to the audience what the bleach incident was?
This is my favorite thing to bring to a dinner talk, and everyone's like, "This is amazing." So DK from Chicago Fire, which like just made it like 10 times better that he's on Chicago Fire now.
So he was one of the kids in Kid Nation, and now he is an actor in Chicago Fire.
Yeah, and so he was on. I think he's probably around 8 or 10 when he went on Kid Nation. He was an amazing, like, adorable kid, and he was saying that they had to actually like bring a wheelbarrow of luggage to this town. They were kind of dropped in the middle of nowhere, and he was like, "I've never had to like pick up a wagon before with like stuff in it, and I was falling down like as we were doing it, and I was like, I don't think I can handle this anymore." But he went through a lot on the show. And to kind of round out his experience, one day they were in the kitchen and the kids were in charge of making lunch and dinner, if I'm correct. Breakfast they were given, which like was so nice of the producers. And when he was cleaning up after everything, he saw what he thought was a soda. And he was like, it's giving lemon, it's giving lime. I'm so excited. It's like, I just want to like gulp it. And so he starts drinking it. And all of a sudden his throat starts to burn. And he's like, what is happening? What is happening? And he realizes like, this is bleach, and had to run off to get help with the paramedics. And it's like, telling that story in 2025 is just so wild. And like, there's just no way that would have ever happened. And the producer, we actually had her, Emily, she was saying like how the producers would clean the tables with bleach and they would put them in bottles so that when they were filming, they didn't realize that was bleach. And so he literally drank the cleaning bottle that they've been using.
God. And not only that, they had to kill their food at one point. There's arguments over them killing, I think, a chicken.
Everyone loves a chicken killing story,
I mean, but these are kids. Their parents literally drop them off. And then at the very end, they all have to pick them up together. And you have some of the parents in the episode. And also just like how filthy it was, like just the amount of trash and crap that these kids did not know how to take care of themselves, even though there are some kind of beautiful stories that these kids have remembrances of. But also it's a great example of, somebody getting hate comments for the first time, a child getting these hate comments about their behavior on this show.
Oh, totally. There was comments between this kid and this other girl, and she was being, a kid and wanting to vote him out for certain things. And they were so young. And there were comments on Reddit calling her a bitch. And it's like, wait a second, this is a kid that you're talking about. And I mean, I think the other part too, just to go back to like when the parents came to pick them up, they had no idea what these kids were living in. I mean, it's insane. And like the dishes were piled to the ceiling. There was rats everywhere. And one of the kids' parents worked for CPS and was like, I take kids out of these situations. I put my kid in this situation and I didn't know.
Oh my gosh. When you're getting these talking heads, were you on set when you were interviewing all of these people or a lot of them?
No, unfortunately I wasn't on set for all of these. A lot of it was remote. Gotta love, after COVID, we can all do remote interviews, but it makes it better because then you can get more people to interview for it. But I will say, just overall for this show, and I've said this so many times, but like reality TV stars are the best with docs because they are so real and so raw and
they're
really
trained.
Yeah, and they're trained.
They know how to like say the thing that's going to pop on screen, which in that Housewives episode, you not only have Vicky, you have Cynthia Bailey, you have Gina Keogh, I believe, and you also have Aviva Drescher, which I have not heard from her in years. And Aviva drops a line that I've been thinking about since I saw the show of Housewives are like gladiators with TITS. Like she said, and I thought that's brilliant. That is a brilliant line. And she recounts the infamous throwing her prosthetic leg, which for me, I remember watching that live going, holy hell. I've seen, like, my mind couldn't even conceive. And it was such a beautiful shot of the leg against that red carpeting that I was like, this is artistic. Like, but when you see that talking head of like Aviva saying something like that, are you like, that's gold?
Oh, 100%. We're going through the script and you're like, oh my gosh. And also that was the best way to describe it. I really feel when we're watching The Real Housewives, it is like they're gladiators and we're just there like rooting on whoever the person is that we like on screen. And I think the other thing too is like with the leg, it's like they're so trained to do these shocking things. And that was the final episode. And she shot her shot and she will now go down in infamy because of it. And she literally says in her interview, like, she was like, I knew what to do to get the audience on my side or to shock the audience so that I came back for another season. And that's the other thing that I think kind of changes in your brain when you become a reality TV star is that's how you think. You think in those bites, you think in those big moments that will keep you coming back.
Yeah, you think about the Teresa table flip or the prosthetic leg throw, and there's these things where in the moment, then, I mean, that's the thing. You just don't want them producing themselves into trying to create these moments because I think the audiences are now so sophisticated that we feel like, they're just pulling an Aviva. They don't really mean it. And you don't want them thinking this way. Mm-hmm. But that's why I think the show is kind of truly amazing. What did you learn about Toddlers and Tiaras? Because you do have an episode on Toddlers and Tiaras, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. So that's actually the final episode. We saved the best for last. I would say with Toddlers and Tiaras, I learned that the real star was the mom. And these moms, and like with our recre, we were really like conscious of not kind of.
And by the way, recre just for the audience means the recreation, correct?
Yes, it does mean recreation. Thank you.
By the way, I learned something new. Recre. I'm going to say that all the time now. Let's recre this. Nice.
I know it's a great little shorthand. But so what we did with the recreation is that we really focused on the moms, and it was for two reasons. One is in our research, we realized like they are really truly the star of this show. They're seeing kind of themselves on that stage, and you'll see them kind of pointing to their, face while the kid's on stage trying to get them to smile, or they're giving outfits for their kids that like clearly they would have loved to wear, but like, didn't want to on a stage. And I think for what we wanted to do was really focus on the mothers. And for our recreation is we showed kind of the mothers like looking at their daughters in a way of like, this is me. And we also, because these kids like went through a lot in Toddlers and Tiaras. I mean, they're wearing very like revealing outfits, and they're getting a lot of like comments from people that shouldn't be commenting on them. And so what we wanted to do was not glorify that in our recreations. And so we actually kind of made a conscious decision to not put children in that, and really focus on the moms, because again, they're the stars of that show.
Yeah. I mean, so folks, they're telling this story, but like she said, the recrees, they not only have these talking head interviews and telling the story, but they do these recreations or these reenactments in each one. They're a little bit different. So it's always kind of interesting to see which one goes where. And I was thinking about the Surreal Life episode, which Surreal Life, it is so funny. There are these now pockets of time as you get older that you're like, God, I just blanked out Surreal Life completely, even though I watched it, even when it switched networks. And I forgot you have Dave Coulier in this. And this was like the beginning of the Flavor Flav Brigitte Nielsen romance that went on. And then we had Flavor of Love on VH1. But this of like Floofy. And, Dave Coulier recounts this story of like, he was sharing a room with Flavor Flav, and he had to leave because he had to like put his mattress in a closet because he didn't want to be there for Flavor Flav and Brigitte Nielsen hooking up. I forgot this dynamic between Dave and Flavor Flav. Like I think everyone kind of fell in love with that like little buddy comedy that they had going on. And I think for other people just like saw another side to Flavor Flav that no one had ever seen before. And that was like the beauty of the Surreal Life, was putting all these celebrities in this house without their hair and makeup, without their assistants, without all these people, and kind of letting them live and also interact with people like in the celebrity world they've never interacted with. And so watching that buddy comedy back and forth. And then he also gets sad when Brigitte kind of comes into the picture and Dave's like, my buddy's gone. Like, what am I, like, we were having fun like at night, like reading to each other. And like, it's so endearing, like watching those two. But that season had the first on-screen hookup that had ever happened in reality TV, which I thought was fascinating. Congratulations, Surreal Life. You made a piece of history. It's burned in my brain of like Flavor Flav going, "You big lady," to Brigitte Nielsen, like, "You big," like, and it was like oh God, it was so great to watch. And you also had, who was the lady that came in late that they didn't remember?
Jerry Manthey.
Jerry Manthey from Survivor. And they were kind of like, you ain't a big enough star for here. And kind of like she came in late to the dinner, and other people, I think like Corey Feldman, were like judging her.
They're like, what are you doing here? And that's the funny thing, is that there was such like a dark cloud around reality TV stars at the time, and that the producers brought her in to kind of shake it up, because everyone was like, you're not an actual celebrity, which is like so funny thinking about now that it's like we have BravoCon literally so that people can go and see these reality TV stars. But their whole idea was like, we're going to bring her in to shake things up because she was such a villain on Survivor. And she really kind of broke down everyone's walls when she got there, because she's a reality TV star, and like that's what they do. And so she was really able to kind of like infiltrate the group, and at the end they accepted her.
Yeah, I mean, that story's in there. I mean, I always just remember Vern Troyer peeing on his, like, he just like was so wasted. I mean, there were so many of these moments that you just forget about completely. But the Surreal Life was a great episode. You also had Extreme Home Makeover Home Edition. And that is actually, to me, that was this like feel good. You would always watch it and kind of like, wow, like move that bus. Yep. And you would be so excited. What was the dark side of Extreme Makeover?
So the dark side of that was when the production and crew left, they were left with the family was left with this huge mansion that they just got, with all of these electronics, computers, TVs that the entire world just saw was in their home. And they were getting intruders left and right coming to rob them because they had just shown where these people live, all the things that they had in their house. And so we have the Oakfath family talking about how this one child saw a person coming to the door with a hammer, and that was literally breaking the glass, trying to get into their house to steal from them.
Oh my God.
It's wild. And then on top of that, they were left with these huge electricity bills that they hadn't paid before because they didn't have a mansion. And one of the light bulbs in one of the movie theaters that this family got was $900 alone. This one light bulb. And that's like, when you really think about it, like, yeah, it's amazing that they have a movie theater, but now you have to pay for that movie theater after all the production crew left. And there's no kind of like level of care after they leave of like, well, we gave you a mansion, like we don't need to do anything else.
But isn't that interesting about early reality television? It was always like the cleanup process, even Bravo, like, they were kind of, you have the reality reckoning, like you're not allegedly maybe providing mental health care, or you're not, taking into our feelings after the cameras go down, which is kind of what the reality reckoning, I think, was saying. So it's really interesting to hear these stories. Yeah, no, I want to go back to this Real Life real quick because I forgot the whole, you have two of the best talking heads. You have Omarosa, and then you have Janice Dickinson. And Janice and Dickinson also appears in another episode you guys are doing, America's Next Top Model.
Yeah.
But I forgot about the extreme, they were like the Batman and the Joker to each other, these two ladies, where they do a photo shoot that they cover in the Dark Side episode where, I think it's Janice Dickinson is holding up a knife to Omarosa, and it like causes this huge hubbub where it ends up like Janice at one point, I think it's Janice, leaves the show before she's even supposed to leave the show.
Oh, and that's the best part about that whole scene is that is the iconic key art for the show, is them all sitting at this table with Janice, and she alleges that it was a fake knife, holding a knife over Omarosa's head. And it is just something that will go down in infamy. My team, some of them had worked at VH1 when that came out and was like, I was there at the shoot. Like, it was insane. It's exactly how you see it play out. And it was so like when they came in and we really wanted to play this up, is that these were kind of two titans coming like at each other, and there was no way they were ever going to become friends. And the producers knew exactly what they were doing by just like plucking them out and being like, these are exactly the two people that we want to play together. And they just, from day one, were at each other's throat, and they were roommates too, which is the best part about that.
It's crazy. And guys, this show literally has all of these, there was so much information that some of it I knew, but most of it I didn't. So it was kind of that thing. And you guys are like me, that you want as much information as possible. And that's why I think this show will hit so many of those buttons for you. Can we get a celebrity rehab episode? And if you ever get a second season, that was one of the darkest reality. That's another one that you block out, that you're like, wow, it was appointment television for me to watch a VH1 show about celebrities going through the darkest moment of their life. And I was sitting there enjoying it as a viewer.
Oh, but after it, I'm like, I need to go to therapy after watching this. I was like, I don't think I should be seeing these things that these people are talking about.
No, it's that. And then like VH1 was wild in their heyday because you had the Rock of Love, which was like Bret Michaels, or you had the Flavor of Love.
Every time he would get a girl, he would make out with her, and then she was like gonna continue on the show. Oh my gosh, I would watch that with my parents when I think.
And then you would have Celebrity Fit Club, which was like celebrities losing weight, and then Celebrity, Rehab, which was the darkest of all shows. But I look at that as like kind of this rich history that reality television has, and that you guys highlight. What is your proudest moment when you do a show like this with so many episodes? I know you're an executive producer and you're used to this stuff. Do you take time to be proud of the work that you've done? Like, is it something like it's always the next thing? Because I think a lot of people will watch this and go, damn, I'm so happy this show exists. Do you take time to kind of like, wow, we really did this. This is cool.
Oh, I'm proud of every show we make. And I know that's such like a cliche thing to say, but the shows that we make, like, we have a genuine interest in it. And this show, it has a special place in my heart because it's reality TV. And like, that was like my childhood, is like growing up on Survivor and growing up on the Real Housewives and the Kardashians and all of that. And so I I had such a passion for this show and the research and the people that we got and the kind of level of care that we did with the show, that after it was done, like, I love watching these episodes still. And like, I'll go back and I'm like, wait, what was that like funny thing that they had said? And so I definitely try to like take a moment to kind of be like, wow, this is like a really cool show that we put together. And I always hope that we can continue doing it. And that's like my favorite part, is going to social media also, and like going to the podcast like yours, like listening to how people get involved with the show or get involved with reality TV, to see like, okay, what can we do better for next time? And what did people want to see more of, and all of that. So that's like the fun part.
What do you think people want to see more of? Like, when you start getting that feedback, or even throughout your career, what have you noticed that like viewers want to see more of?
I think it's honestly just more of the background. It's more of the like finding out that a producer fell off a cliff filming Survivor. It's, it's more of getting Vicky, the OG of the OC, talking about her experience, and like what I would say is a very unfiltered version of like her experience on Housewives. Because
guys, there is one thing she says where I was like, I can't believe she said that. I can't believe, and I'm not going to ruin it but I couldn't believe she said it. And I was like, is she going to get in trouble for saying this very specific thing about Bravo?
I had so many moments, just again, as like a Bravo fan, as a reality TV fan, that I was like, oh my gosh, they actually said that. That's amazing.
I need a companion book for this. I need Vice TV to do a companion Dark Side of Reality.
I will get on that. I'll get on that immediately.
Sorry to add more work to your plate.
No.
I have a couple more minutes with you, but you talk about growing up and loving these shows as well. What's your personal taste? Like, what are you watching? Has TV, are you kind of desensitized to enjoying this stuff because you work in it? Like, what do you watch currently?
Yeah, that was always my one thing going into TV. I was just like, I never want to lose my love for TV, and it is not gone. Yeah, it's funny. I kind of like watch an amalgamation of premium docuseries, really into the Menendez brothers right now, as our entire world is.
So you watched the documentary on Netflix yet?
I did watch the doc. It was very intense. And I did watch the Ryan Murphy scripted version as well, just to, get a little compare and contrast in there. And I will say, like, my love for reality TV, it's still there. And if anything, like, I get excited to watch this show because I'm like, I know all the kind of like dirty details when I'm watching the Real Housewives of OC now, and what happened. And I also think, like, I love those like gritty dramas. Tell Me Lies is like at the top of my list right now.
They just had their season finale this week. And
I watched that.
I haven't got to see it yet, but it's supposed to be amazing.
Oh, it's insane. It's another jaw dropper at the end of the season, and you're just like, how did they do that again? And I just feel like, from kind of all the genres that I watch, it's just like everything has that shock value to it. I think that's the thing for me, is that I need to watch something that has shock value now, because I know all the tricks of the trade. So it's like, if a show can like truly shock me and I put my phone down, that's when I know that it's a good one.
I know, that's the thing. It's like some of this becomes so disposable now that you're trained to watch it while you're on your phone. And those things that make you put your phone down and kind of lean in, those are the things that you're like, oh, this is really special. And I got to tell you, your show is one of those that I put my phone down and I kind of was glued to it. So thank you for that.
I love to hear that.
Can you tease anything that's coming up for you, or what Vice TV is working on? Because I've been a big fan of what they've done in the past.
Yeah. So for Dark Side of Reality TV, the best is yet to come. We have Survivor. We have America's Next Top Model. We have Toddlers and Tiaras. We have Real Housewives. We got the OGs of all of these shows, which is like the best part about it. It's interesting because Tyra just walked in Victoria's Secret model show this week. And so we dive into all the controversy around Tyra and how the contestants really felt about her, which is always fascinating. For Vice TV, we have some amazing sports programming coming up.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for doing the Lord's work. I mean, truly, this is something that I was so excited to watch, and it did not disappoint me. You guys, I'm going to put all the information on the show notes, and I'll also do a talk up after we let Meghan go about the show as well. But I want you to tune in. I want you to catch up on all these episodes. Some of you guys might not even know about this yet, and you got to, if you were fans of reality television. And where do you think reality television is headed, if you were to bet?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's the shock value. I think it's just people one-upping each other. It's just like, how can we have people fall in love in pods, and like, what island can we put someone on that they're dating and for $1 million? And it's just, I think it's like just trying to find every like bit and piece of every reality TV show everyone loves and put it into one. Like, that's what I just feel like we're constantly moving towards.
And you also never know what's going to hit. So there's like so many, even you guys focus on that. You never know. They didn't know that Survivor was going to be the hit that it was. So you go into these things, there's so much risk and you don't know what you're going to capture. So it's kind of like walking this tightrope, which I find fascinating about reality television as a genre in particular. Meghan Payne, thank you for this. I hope you'll come back sometime again because this went way too quick. And like I said, just thank you for your work.
Thank you so much. And I love your podcast. Please keep going. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm quitting after this show.
Yeah,
This is my
you're like, I'm done.
Meghan, the dark side of So Bad It's Good.
I got you. Yeah.
All right.